I was going to gratuitously lean over and hold it.
One more.
So we can bring it away from
Don't
say it on the video.
Yeah, it's fine. You just talk to the front three rows here. Okay, so this is another one of our meetups. I don't think anyone doesn't know Clive and hasn't actually worked with him personally, and he's pretty much touched all of our lives in some way or shape. Would you like to share the joke?
What's the joke?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we've got this time. We're trying to keep it relevant to what you guys are working on. So if you guys are working on various topics, we had some sort of feedback session, and we've been working through those topics. I hope it's still relevant, and I'm going to be asking kind of how we are actually applying what we're spending time looking at and discussing during these sessions. So yeah, I mean, we really do need this feedback, otherwise we're going to probably repurpose the time. Okay, so Clive's talking about lean thinking today. I think that we all are doing our stand-ups across all the teams. We're just actually having a discussion about how well we're doing. We had this planning session which was 2 days long, and a lot of us was like, oh, it's too long, you know. But the presenter, who's gone to various other teams and done exactly the same exercise, he was like, there's absolutely no way that they're going to be finished within 2 days. So he was very surprised that we are actually as far along the curve as we are. So hopefully we can actually jump on the bandwagon and have a good interactive discussion with Clive and say where it actually impacts our own work life. And thanks. Just shape this to be something that's actually going to be relevant to what we're doing every day. So there are eats at the back. Like those platters have just arrived, so feel free. We'll probably break about 10 minutes before the end, and just to grab some food and there'll be questions.
Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on lean thinking. It became obvious to me, a couple of weeks ago, and also quite recently that we've been on this road of sort of agile, and there's a big crossover between agile practice and features, and the sort of key stuff behind lean thinking to sort of go hand in hand. But it's become fairly obvious to me that over the last 2.5 years, we've been on a long journey. We've learned so much over that period of time, and sometimes I think that we take it for granted that we've actually come such a long way. And I was saying to Paul the other day that, actually, sometimes we beat ourselves up a bit in terms of what we still need to do. And of course, we should never rest on our laurels and think that we've actually arrived at the place where we want to be, because I never think that you do. I think you're always in a state of Kaizen, or if I can use my pen, continuous improvement. It's the first time I've used this pen. We can solve it. But anyway, the point of the story is that I've recently started working with a group of people who do Salesforce development at Rosebank, and a group that falls underneath Paul. And he asked me to just go and sit with them and just run them through how to stop working in such a waterfall-based sort of methodology and sort of start to think a little bit more in an agile fashion, just to help them along the way and get them going, get the wheels in motion along an agile sort of path. And when I first started to talk to them, I realized that this was us 2.5 years ago. That we, although the lights come on.
Yeah, there's a sensor there. I'll switch it up.
It's all right.
What's up?
So, in talking to them, I realized that, they had all the traditional problems that were associated with teams that were unagile. They were, they were doing huge BRDs. The BA told me that one of the last projects that they did, which took them 6 months, 2 months was spent writing a BRD. 2 months. So, so excessive documentation and upfront requirement gathering. They had all of the associated sort of mistrust relationship with the business. And in fact, even there was no empowerment in the team. Everyone was sort of like on their own. A sort of good team ethic didn't exist, and all those problems were there. And it was so easy to walk in from where we've been to seeing what what they were involved with. So, and then coupling that with just like looking at documenting some of the stuff, and looking through lean thinking and ways of doing things. But it also made me realise that we've come this is almost like a bit of a backpacking session, but we've actually come such a long way in the last 2.5 years. And I think what we will see as we go through the presentation is that we're actually doing a lot of this stuff. And I think you get those phases of development which are when you first start with doing something, you are unconsciously incompetent, which means that you don't know how bad you are. Then you move to a stage of being consciously incompetent, but you realise how bad you are. Then you move to a stage of being consciously incompetent. You're good at what you're doing, but you have to think about it all the time. And the sort of highest state of being your involvement is becoming unconsciously. And so, I think we'll realise that a lot of these things we're unconsciously competent in a lot of the things that we're doing. So, yeah, let's start off with the presentation. So, this is what I see today's get together as. A group of people get together and talk about lean, what it means and how it applies to us. Furthermore, more importantly, what we can do to work in this way and evangelize the principles. I think evangelizing the principles for me is it's all good and well us knowing how to do things well, but we need to spread the love. We need to make sure that we always thinking that these things are always in the top of our mind, and that we're constantly acting in our daily jobs with these principles in mind. And again, I think to a large degree we do that pretty well. Does anyone else have any other outcome that they would like to see from that session? Is that covered? Okay. Just a very brief history of lean, where it comes from and what it is. So it's basically born out of the Henry Ford Model T Ford production line. We started productionizing this Model T Ford. Basically, didn't work that well in the end because it didn't cope. The whole process didn't cope very well with change. For instance, there was no facility for making it in anything other coloured than black, and the engine sizes and the models were always the same. So when it came to changing the environment, the Model T Ford production line kind of fell down. But that was where the idea first came out. And then William Edwards Deming's planned new jet-back cycle, which was taken to Japan in post-World War II era, and taken up mainly by Toyota. And Toyota actually perfected this whole thing of lean. They popularized what was known as the Toyota production system. It also became known as just-in-time production. But what did they do so well? What made this? What made them turn their whole production process around so well? Well, firstly, they got employees involved in the process, especially in terms of quality. So they got employees involved in the quality process. So on the production line, employees were empowered to actually make a call on, if they saw something that was was wrong or some sort of defect going on in the production line, they were able to stop the whole production line and sort quality out like on the ground as it happened. So that was one of the key things. And that was talks to employee asking to basically empowering employees. Okay. Secondly, they focused on smaller batches. So they tried to break down the amount of work that they were doing and getting those into production in smaller batches. Thirdly, and possibly the most importantly, they worked to eliminate waste in the end-to-end production process. And there's a quote from, I'll pull it forward a bit, from Taichi Ono, who was the father of the Toyota production system. He said, all we're doing is looking at the timeline from the moment the customer gives us an order to the point that we collect the cash. And we're reducing that timeline by removing the non-value-added waste. So they were looking at their end-to-end production cycle or cycle time, and they were looking at all of the steps that were taken in that value chain, and removing the waste in each stage of the process. What do they also do? They also reduced queues in the production. So by doing that, they removed the amount of inventory that they had to order and keep it stocked. They also reduced their work in progress. And their ultimate focus was on customer satisfaction. So by delivering on time, it resulted in customer satisfaction, and quality improvement resulted in less returns and less repairs. So quality was a key metric for them in customer satisfaction. Okay, now from what I've said there, in all of this, it's not difficult to see how this works so well in the product really well, and I'm sure all of you are thinking you've already drawn the parallels. That's the word. Parallels between the actual manufacturing process to our product development. Okay, so in doing this, I'm going to focus on the house of Lean and the pillars of Lean. So, at the top of the house, we've got the goal, which is value. I've drawn this thing out over here because this is going to disappear. So we've got the goal of value, which is basically around speed of delivery and quality. So that's the house and the goal. And the pillars are respect for people, the actual product development flow, and then lastly, continuous improvement. And then lastly, the foundation of the house is around So what I'm going to do during the course of the presentation is just focus on each of those pillars. Okay, so the roof of the house, the goal is value, speed, and quality. We look at...
Do you only choose two of those? Or?
No, you the focus is on this one. So, sustainably shortest lead time. Use someone at the back. Mo. Either one of you. Why would it be a sustainably shortest lead time?
Well, you've got to make sure that you can...
Sorry, we can't hear you at the front here.
Okay, you're going to make sure that you obviously that whatever your processes are, it's got to be it's got to be sustainable in the sense that it's got to be well placed. You can't go into a boost and then obviously die out in the next sprint.
Oh, that's exactly right. I think we want to make sure that we can develop always at a sustainable pace. We never want to be putting a burden too much on our people. Otherwise, at some stage of the game, we're going to burn out. And although the quality or the delivery is good, eventually the burnout will happen and it'll be bad because we run out of resources. So that's exactly that. And then we're also focusing on the best quality and value to clients. I think we've always placed a big emphasis on the fact that quality is non-negotiable. Quality is built into our process, and of anything, quality must not ever be compromised. So quality is very, very good. And as I said here, covered this here, looking at the value chain. And it's the concept of the whole process behind putting the cycle time short and eliminating waste. So onto the first pillar then. It's around respect for people. So I've said there, software is developed by people at the end of the day for other people. Okay, we can throw as many tools and other things and processes and everything, but at the end of the day, if you cut it down to its most basic thing, it's people developing software for other people. Okay, so if you look after the people in the teams, they will build effective software. I fundamentally believe that when people wake up in the morning every day, they don't think I'm going to go to work today and do a shit job. Everybody, I think, essentially, most people anyway, believe that they will come to work and do a good job. And if you create the right environment for them to do that good job, they'll do that. So as long as we're empowering people to, or letting people have the right environment to work, giving them the right tools, the right environments, and the right processes, they will inherently do a good job. A lot of the lean thinking and behind this is actually empowering people to make decisions that affect them on the ground by themselves. So its teams must be empowered to make change and to continuously improve. We'll look at some of the things that happen, things like retrospectives, things like enabling local decision-making power for teams to actually happen. And I think you guys will agree that a lot of that does happen. It's not something we need to introduce. I think to a large degree that happens in our work environment. You'd be surprised at the extent to which it doesn't happen in other areas. Yeah, no?
So you got the agile, which is the overall type of thing. You got XP and lean and all the other different types of. So between lean and the other things, how does it compare? Is that something? I know it's like a sub.
Well, they're all kind of thrown into the pot together, to be honest. There's slight differences in each of the things. But for instance, there's a big overlap between what Agile says and what lean thinking is, and to a large degree extreme programming as well. Does anyone else?
Is this a subset of Agile or is this not Agile?
What is part of Agile?
It's a part of Agile.
Agile and lean kind of go hand in hand. You'll see that there's a lot of stuff here that belongs in the Agile space. I don't separate them. I think, it's the same principles.
It was actually a webinar that I thought was actually going back to. It says that Agile techniques and all those, they're just techniques, they're just rules. What you really should be applying is lean thinking. Wanting to put, shorter development, more quality. That's what you should be heading to. Those ones are just tools.
The thing is, Clive, you know what, this is one thing talking to us about this, where our waste comes in a lot in our world, is all the other interactions that we have to deal with to make our job a success. And seriously, those guys need to see this presentation. Really. From all the external peripheral things that we have to touch, because a lot of the waste in our stuff comes from getting a firewall rule done or getting some other crap sorted out, you know what I mean?
So it's our job to.
But that's exactly what I was still coming to that.
So what we need to always do is make sure that the visibility of that sort of thing exists, and then we can work to change those things. And I know Matt Barno recently raised something with me. He's got to sit through 3 cabs to get stuff done, and GTR not running with. So that's a good example. It's probably talks to the same sort of thing.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
So I'm running with the service.
Is that you guys getting involved in that higher level because those are the things you find extremely.
So if there's stuff like that, Mike, then you must either come see me directly or tell Craig or just make sure that the visibility is there and then stuff can get done. So our job is to identify the waste.
Yeah.
And then where possible, if you can remove the waste yourself, do it. And if not, just let the people know.
Well, that's why I'm running Linux, but yeah, I mean. But
visibility is key.
I mean, these are cool presentations and all this, but if the whole company, Standard Bank Group, doesn't adhere to the same kind of towers of strength and all the rest of the crap, then it doesn't, we'll be working in an isolated world and you're going to hit brick walls no matter where you go.
I think we're getting GTO to slowly realize that they need to be part of this agile concept. Because I think in the past they're still traditional waterfall, but I think they're getting the message clearer and clearer as we're pushing back to them that they need to give us upfront plans and stuff, that because we've got dependencies on those things. So hopefully, maybe firewall rules could be a runnerback issue, but production or infrastructure stuff, I think is really the stuff that really can hold us back. Big blocks and
production is fine, exactly, but like UAT and all the rest, come on, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's why we've got that board up there now, and hopefully we can get the teams to start rotating on that board as well, and put your stickies on there.
Is that what you do? The hijacking is...
Yeah, no, it's just, I think,
And talk
it's to make...
You need to influence the rest of the bank. You need to influence the rest of the bank.
Yeah, that's the kind of, John, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So I don't know if you guys know this, and I don't know if Paul's mentioned it before, but as a direct result of what James and Paul have been sort of talking to the Peter Swiggerses of the world and what have you, Peter Swiggers has actually put it on the KRAs for all the people who report to him. The project should be delivered in an incremental way. That's a direct result of what we've done in this project. So the rest of CIB are now incentivized to deliver incrementally. And that's, we've gone into, like, working with this team in corporate banking. I've consciously not said to them, we're doing agile. I said to them, we're working in an incremental delivery way. Because that's what it is. It's just getting that mindset of, instead of doing this huge big delivery, we're delivering in small bits. It's easy for people to get into. And so I mean, I think that talks to your point. It's like, we are influencing other areas of the bank. And, these things don't happen overnight, but especially in the bank, or in a bank. But I believe we'll get there. So partnerships are built on mutual respect and trust, and I think again that talks to what we've done over the last 2.5 years. We started off life. I remember having conversations with Sam, and he was always worried that the team was. He always used to say he has the feeling that the team's not delivering, and it was just a feeling that he had. And over the course of the couple of years that we've been working, there's no such questions anymore. We never have any questions about, are the team delivering, questions of the team delivering, delivery slow, or whatever. It's because we've developed that respect and trust, and we've continually delivered, we've continually put stuff into production, and so questions of lack of delivery or mistrust go away. And that's something that I've really been telling the corporate banking team. They can't wait to see how things are going to improve. So, there's quite a lot of stuff to get through here. But anyway, onto the product development flow side. There's 8 key points there that I want to get through. The first one is to take an economic view. I'll run through each one in a little bit more detail. Second one is to actively manage queues. Number 3, understand and exploit variability. 4 is to reduce batch size. 5, apply work constraints. 6, control flow under uncertainty. 7, get feedback as fast as possible. And 8 is to decentralize control. Okay, so number 1, take an economic view. So apply economic thinking to everything. Okay, ultimately we're doing this to make money at the end of the day. Reduce wasteful work because it costs money. I think what I'm trying to be telling the corporate banking guys is, it's when they're faced with getting a new piece of work for the business, it's their job to question why they're doing that piece of work. They mustn't just do it. And I think this team actually does that pretty well. We always question, always push back on the business and say, well, why are we doing this? What's the business case? What's the business value? What's the business going to get out of this? So that's something that I'm really trying to get them to do. And quite often, if you force the business to think a little bit more clearly about what they're asking for, they'll often say, oh, well, actually, we don't really need all of that. We just need that. That's probably the most important thing for us to do. We need to go and do that. And that's producing the minimum viable product. Producing the smallest thing that can be put into production without any bells and whistles. That's our responsibility. To understand the full value chain, the sequence works and jobs for maximum benefit. If you quantify one thing, quantify what the cost of delay is. It's quite important. Empower local decision making. Because if you empower local decision making, you remove the time or the cost of delay. It enables you to carry on doing what you're doing without actually wasting any more time. Something that I want to be doing going on through the year is to make sure that the costs of running teams and producing features becomes more visible to the teams. So if we say we're going to do feature X, I'd like to be able to put a value on that feature so everybody knows how much that feature is ultimately costing us, so that if we want to go and do a piece of work or a spike which takes 4 days when it should only really take 2 days, we know what that cost of doing the 2 days actually is, and we'll arrange and set together. Okay, actively manage queues, and I think we do this very well. Long queues lead to longer cycle times. Can anyone explain cycle time to me?
2 weeks, maybe? From the time of the business requirement is identified to the time it's delivered, maybe?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. So longer queues lead to longer cycle times because there's more stuff there, and it should be, if you're not actively prioritizing queues and reducing the unnecessary work, the cycle times will be bigger. Leads to increased risk, more variability, lower quality, and decreased motivation. I mean, if you've got a sprint board that's sitting there with 50 tasks on it, and those tasks haven't been prioritized or evaluated, and the useless ones taken out and reprioritized, when you look at the board, you're thinking, we've got a lot of stuff to get through before the next sprint. Not a good situation. Okay, understanding and exploiting variability. So I've said there you cannot add value without adding variability. What does variability mean in this situation? So we've identified some work that we're doing in a sprint. Maybe some of the work is not that well understood. What would we do in that situation to discover what needs to be done? You'd spike something, wouldn't you? So in doing a spike, two things can happen. One, you can realize that you need to do something else that may add more value. And two, you might abandon something that would actually be wasteful. So exploiting variability is effectively using spikes to either add value or to remove things away from your production. So like I said, by using spikes, you discover which features or stories can be done and which should not be done. So that's the whole idea behind exploiting and understanding variability. So that's it's the antithesis of following a plan which never varies off the line of the plan. Just delivering to a plan, you're not looking outside the wider areas of the plan in which you could add more value to actually remove stuff which shouldn't be done. Okay, reducing batch size. I don't think I need to say too much more about that. I think everyone knows and understands and realizes the value of producing smaller batches, moving it through the production line as quickly as possible, and deploying it into production as quickly as possible. You reduce your cycle time, you enable faster feedback. The key thing to notice here, and I think again, to a large degree, we do it very well in the program, is that good infrastructure and software development practices enable small batches. So that's the build and test automation and the continuous integration piece behind our software development practices. Okay, applying work in progress constraints. Why is that a good idea? Simple.
Chris? Just that you need to get through one thing, complete it, and stop it. Don't work on too many things.
I think the first thing that I say there is stop starting, start finishing. Is that we want to move stuff across the board and into done as efficiently and quickly as possible. We don't want to have a whole heap of work sitting in the to-do column and nothing in the done column. So we want to make sure that we maximize the economic benefit at all times by making sure that we've got stuff in the deployed column, not in the progress column. And what I've said to the guys in the corporate banking team is, and how I explained it to their managers, is that if someone to come into the team tomorrow and say, okay, we've cut your budget and you can't develop anymore, do they have as much in their done column and potentially being able to deploy to production as possible, or are they sitting with a whole heap of stuff in progress, which actually adds no value? I mean, Agile says that the only measure of success is working software in production. That's your only real tangible measurable. So that very much applies to this here. You want to make sure that you're getting stuff into the program and sitting in progress. If you're working on more than one task at a time, your focus is diverted. You're not focusing on it. And if a task is really important and you need to move that across the board, what do? You swarm around that, you pair program on it, you solicit help from someone in the team to be able to move that across into the done column. Maximizes your throughput. And it inherently ensures that prioritization of work happens. That the most important work is in progress, while the least important work is sitting in the to-do column. Okay, number 6 is the flow control uncertainty. Donald Reinhartson, which I've recently read his book, and if anyone really fancies a good read on this stuff, it's probably the Bible on sort of product development and flow. He's written a book called Principles of Product Development Flow. And he says here that we get more value from overall alignment than local excellence. And what that essentially means is that aligning a team towards a common goal, or aligning a group of teams across a common goal, provides you with more value than teams who, in isolation, do things very well. You get more overall benefit. And I think
Not compliant, John.
I think one of the main things we were trying to achieve with our recent planning workshop was to achieve that alignment across the program. I think to a large degree we're succeeding. It's making sure that everybody in the program was all focused in the same direction. We all knew and know where the business are going, what the other teams are doing, so that when local decisions have to be made, people have the knowledge to make those decisions and know how to make those decisions. So this whole thing revolves around the ideas of cadence and synchronization, which is why we decided to synchronize all of the sprints across the program. Cadence turns unpredictable events into predictable ones, which is why we say 2 sprints are always 2 weeks. And across the program, they're 2 weeks. Yeah, actually.
Tell me, is it safe to say a lean or lean development or lean production comes from just in time, or lean is an advanced version of just in time?
Well, just in time is just very much part of it. So it's integrated into the whole ethos of thinking. So yeah, it's exactly. so our sprints are 2 weeks, and we have regular drops into production. It makes the business are never asking questions around when is stuff getting dropped into production, because they know it's coming at a regular time. So the expectations are managed. We never have to worry about business expectation and things happening and the regular cadence. And it helps us manage load, the amount of work that we're loading into our sprints by time boxing stuff into manageable sprints. Synchronization causes multiple events to happen at the same time. So there, for example, sprints within a program. We all know when things are happening. And it also facilitates cross-functional trade-offs of resources. I think this is starting to happen, I know, especially with the Metro team and the infrastructure team. I know Mike's been sort of jumping between teams. So that's an example of using a resource or resources to be able to be in two different teams because they're running on the same side.
Oh, exactly. It was Vanna just talking on the slut. Joke, guys, come on.
We've been talking a lot about the whole concept of cross-functional teams. You know, say for instance, if there's a piece of work that comes up that pricing have quite a big requirement, and there's a bit of Metro and a bit of e-market trader, we could then say, take a couple of people out of pricing, a couple of people out of Metro, a couple of people out of infrastructure, and one or two from e-market trader to all come together and work on the same piece of work. When that piece of work's finished, then all go back into the teams again. So that's the whole idea behind cross-functional teams. And I think more and more we're starting to think and even start working. So this idea of synchronization helps that process because everyone's working at the same time frame. We've touched on this quite a lot, and that's to get the feedback as quickly as possible, to make sure that the feedback loops are always in place. Someone really wise called McGill says that sometimes people don't know what they want until they see it. And I think Silma, part of Silma and Landing will certainly attest that Chris probably to this fact that quite often the business won't, they'll ask for something, but until they see it, they won't actually apply much thought to it. And that's why we always want to be able to get something in front of the business as quickly as possible, because then that facilitates and drives better, richer requirements. Yeah. So, getting the feedback loops in as quickly as possible reduces the cost of failure, and decreases risk. It improves the efficiency of learning by basically getting that feedback back into the team. If we weren't doing something right, we can get that back into the process quickly. It enables us to do the minimum viable product. If the client sees it, they realize they might not necessarily need everything they asked for. And some people here might remember what happened in the SDP world when we very, very first started developing. The requirements around the blotter were very, very, they wanted loads of stuff around the blotter. And then what happened was we realized that we were going to run out of time, and that all of the stuff in the blotter was going to take about half of the time of development. So we took it back to them and showed them, and they actually said, well, you know what? We don't really need all of the bells and whistles around this blotter. Justin will probably remember it from the captain's line. So we dropped, I'd say 80% of the work that we were going to do on the blotter, and we went into production with the minimum blotter we could go. And that was enough. So that's what we helps there. It enables shorter cycle time. It enables better development of quality. To my knowledge, I don't think we've ever been, with the constant feedback loops that the BA is constantly doing with the business, I don't think we've ever ended up with something going into production with the business and said, well, that's not really what we're looking for. Because those constant feedback loops are in place, Mike.
We have.
So, did you have the right feedback loops in place?
Wow, business said, no, we're going in, and that's why now we've had to change our whole rule set again because they're changing their tune.
I think that's probably a different probably talks to a different thing.
I know what the
Changing your mind is.
They want it because they want
No,
it.
so yeah, Yolandi can probably better explain, but they're too scared of their own rules that they devised. Then they said, no, now let's do what the old LBA did. He's scared.
Unfortunately, there's people that have to support that don't understand the big picture, so it is a bit risky going everything. So it's just easier to break it down. They
Again, I
want
think-
everything, they just don't want it all at once.
So then that probably talks to reducing the batch size of stuff going into production. So probably more work could have done and down further and probably more stuff into production. And then your local feedback loops, which are your team level feedback loops, which are your peer reviews, year reviews, and team reviews, are probably also just as important as it is to your global ones, which are your feedback loops to your business. So I know that we make good use of peer reviews, peer programming, and that sort of thing to make sure that the theories and the works are tested before we actually take it into QA and to the business. Any other comments there?
So this largely speaks to just that right when this being done. That's a confirmation.
Yep. 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I'm not lost one. There's not much to go. So centralizing control. So big difference between centralizing and decentralizing the decision-making processes. Centralized decisions should be made for those decisions that are made infrequently and those that can be applied globally. Okay? But we should always seek to decentralize the decision-making process, i.e. have decision-making active at a team level, because it ensures efficiency to make those decisions and time taken. So you're not waiting for someone to make a decision, you're actually making those decisions together as a team at a stand-up or at a sprint planning session or something like that. Those decisions are made there and then. And people should be empowered to make those decisions. Local decisions have the right local context. Teams should be empowered to make the right decisions in the best interest of the team, the program, and the bank. And I think, as long as you can always demonstrate that you were trying to do the right thing at a team level, at a program level, and at a bank level, I think that's probably covered off all of the criteria that would be applicable to make a good decision. And I've said there, if it adds value, do it. If it doesn't add value, don't. Then on to the third pillar. So we just moved off the product development flow, 8 principles there. We're moving on to the Kaizen continuous improvement pillar. There's not much to this one. Kaizen, in Japanese, means change for the best. And what it talks to is small changes made continuously, which all add up to big change. So I said there, we must be relentless in our reflection, and we must always pursue continuous improvement. So small, steady improvement. We don't want to make massive changes, we want to make small changes, we want to make them continuously. We should always try to use empirical data to make improvements. So we try to gather data and use that data to make informed decisions about changes that we need to make. For instance, if you analysing some of the data on the board, you've noticed that on average, some of the tasks are staying in the to-do column for 5 or 6 days per card. You know that there's a problem, so that there's something that you have some data to be able to act on to make an improvement on why those cards are staying. Is it that the work hasn't been broken down enough? Don't we understand enough about the work that's in to-do? What is the problem that data is driving? So use reflections of key milestones, and that's our retrospectives. So we must use retrospectives well to drive change, and I know we do to a lot of people. Use tools like retrospectives, root cause analysis, and the 5 whys. If you ask the question why 5 times, you should always be able to derive a good root cause.
That's
why my son does it.
Yeah. And lastly, there's something that we don't always think about, but protect the knowledge base by keeping personnel stable and careful succession planning. You know, I know we've worked very hard on reducing key man dependencies in the teams. You know, we don't want a hero culture in our teams. You know, if we have someone who has a lot of knowledge and no one else has the knowledge, that's not a good thing at all. It's a very bad thing to discourage. So that's that. And the last one is the foundation, and that's around management support. I think, you know, in the program we were very lucky that we had James and Paul who were very pro doing what we wanted to do, allowed us to get on with it. It's something that I'm also working very hard with the corporate banking guys is to get their key business stakeholders and their managers on board so that will facilitate a good working arrangement for the corporate banking team. We're very, very keen to make some changes in their space. So if you don't have the right sort of management, key stakeholder participation, that's what makes what you're doing on the ground quite difficult. So in summary then, we've got the goal, which is the value, speed of delivery and the quality that we're trying to drive. And the pillars are the respect for people, the 8 principles of product development flow. So I'll go back to those quickly. It's taking an economic view, managing queues, understanding and exploiting variability, reducing the batch sizes, apply work in progress constraints, control flow under uncertainty, getting your feedback as fast as possible, and decentralizing control. Okay, so I think that was me. Lastly, so your outcomes. Change mindsets. So changing your mindset and developing a lean culture is very important. What I've said to the corporate banking team is that they have this idea that, you know, one day they were going to come in and they were going to stop doing waterfall, and the next day they were going to come in and they were going to start doing agile. I said to them that that's not the way it works. It's about developing a culture of thinking about this sort of stuff. So as long as these principles are on your mind and you're constantly working at them and thinking about them, then they will always feed through and you'll make the right decisions and you know, you'll work and do the right things. So it's developing that lean culture. And then continuously change and improve, influence others, always challenge, always ask why, never just do something, always challenge, and then become a lean revolutionary and an evangelist. That's it.
It's a lot of resistance.
Okay, just in the interest of keeping this relevant to ourselves, thanks everyone for coming. Quite a lot of people. But hopefully we're all going to speak to everyone else that we chat to in the next 2 weeks. We're going to evangelize. We're going to be applying these principles. So if I could just actually do a bit of a round robin, and starting at the back, if you can just say something, a comment, a question, a statement about what you've just seen, and what you think of it, or what you're wondering. OG.
What I liked about the whole thing is the whole lean thinking thing is new to me. I know of lean production or something like that. So it's pretty much awesome.
Well, I think again, you know, it's what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
It's common sense. Most of the stuff is common sense stuff. We think about it, we know about it. It's a no-brainer, but you know, you say that, but then you go and look at teams, and I keep going back to the corporate bank team, because I know that for me it's almost like a night and day situation. I come from this team that are working here, and I go to that team there where none of that stuff applies. And you think to yourself, yes, it is common sense, but it's not, because people don't do it all the time. So that's what's quite interesting about it. It is common sense, but it doesn't always apply.
Quickly, Nana?
In terms of the fact that you have been thinking about this, but you just didn't have like the proper words to kind of summarize everything. So lean thinking is just now put those concepts in so that you can start expanding them and how to actually apply certain things. Again, going back to a team, looking at our board and how to kind of streamline it, apply the thinking to it. That's what I like.
I think what we've said is that we've come a long way in 2.5 years. That means it also means that we haven't quite got there. What I really want to see this year is people to really become empowered. I want the teams to really become self-driven and self-empowered. That's where the real strength lies in teams. It's not having management team leads running. It's each individual being a leader in the team and driving, becoming empowered to make decisions and driving stuff. That's the stuff.
Yeah, from my side, I enjoyed the presentation in the sense that you gave an examples to each of the principles that you mentioned with regard to the current environment. It was actually very good.
On my side, what I found most interesting is the product development flow. So like moving from our old team into the SDP space. We actually were driven now to start following some of these practices that you mentioned now on the product development. So like the swarming and getting one item through the flow, like try to get as much done rather than and minimize in progress. So we have more value at the end of the day.
Yep.
So that we slowly like picking up those practices. We're not there yet, but we are slowly.
It's happen overnight, but as long as the process is underway.
Yeah, well, 150 milligrams isn't much, right? So, a little common sense goes a long way, I guess, was what that thing is supposed to say. But yeah, the Clive, it's taken me a long time to adopt this whole agile thing.
Nice.
And it's kind of like not your turn, right? Maybe you should just pipe down. But yeah, so all what you spoke about now, the production lines and so on, it all makes sense. So it's like what I spoke to you about earlier in the presentation that you had, the other roadblocks, and I think the rest of the organization. I mean, we kind of on track now with this. The little train is running, But I feel like the rest of the organization needs to kind of come on board with these things. So all the departments work in this type of
global alignment.
Globally aligned, and that when you ask for something, there's not this huge wastage. It takes 6 sprints to get something done that you blocked on the task.
I was very bad at Mike, and I think visibility is key. So I mean at every level. So I mean the whole reason behind having a board, a physical board, is to provide visibility. So you can see immediately what's happening. If you walk into a room, you can see immediately there's too much in production or too much in progress and not enough in production. So that's at a team level. And if you make that visibility, if you take that back a couple of levels at a bank level, which is where if you make that stuff visible to Paul and myself and those sorts of things, we can work to fix those.
And I'm glad that finally we've got the concept of a spike, because when this agile thing first started, I said to Andresen at that time, how do you mitigate some risk here in this thing? There's no R&D in like this true agile mentality thing, right? So how do you mitigate that? How do you sort these things out? It's like always, sprint zero, we'll kind of sort this and this and this out. That was like 2 years ago, right? And I don't know since then when the spike concept came about, but that's exactly correct. So we see a problem, somebody runs off on the side, R&D this thing, this isn't going to work, and we can make another plan. So it's good.
Yeah,
I'll shut up now.
No, that's cool. No, thanks.
Okay, I guess for me, what's important to understand the agile process is don't over-design a solution. And understand where the wastage comes in, because sometimes you're going to cater for stuff that the client doesn't really need, right? Or you're never going to actually utilize yourself in development later on in the product. So this design that's at the MVP, focus on MVP and of course then this incrementally improve the product client does desire.
I think it was a very important talk. What I'm taking away from this is we really have to do better at eliminating our waste. It's costing us a lot of time and it's quite evident, but it doesn't seem like anything is happening at the moment to eliminate it.
And it's not because we both
Same birthday.
Well, I think we're already doing most of the stuff, but it's good to highlight the principles again to realise where we can improve.
Okay, actually have a couple of points. So the one is on the queue management. I find because we've been delivering a lot of stuff, we get a lot of stuff that just gets thrown onto the queue without being thought of, just because we are delivering. So that I think is very important for us to manage that stuff. Is it in the right place? Is it the right thing to do? And is it actually going to add value, or is it just somebody's idea of we're getting stuff done, let's get more done? So that's one of the things that I think is very important, is that queue management, making sure the right stuff is on that queue and it's not too much, because people just start throwing things on there to get it done.
Yeah, what you say is pretty valid. I mean, again, I'll draw a comparison between the corporate team. I was sitting with them yesterday and we were running through sort of like a backlog prioritization session. And they were looking at some of the items that they had on the backlog, and they couldn't answer whether, or they couldn't tell you for each piece of work what business value will be realized from each piece of work. And I said to them, when we have our backlog prioritizations for the business next week, we're going back and we're going to do it actually tomorrow. It's tomorrow. We must question them and make sure that they can give us an answer for each piece of work that's on that backlog. They must be able to tell us what business value gets unlocked by that piece of work. And that's quite key, because then it enforces the business to think about, why they're really asking for this piece of work. I mean, is it going to enable 50 clients to be onboarded, or does it just benefit one person? I mean, what is the real value? And then that drives prioritization of work. If you realize that's one person, then that must go down prioritization. So I think that talks about what you're saying. Is that, is the queue properly being managed? Or we're just throwing stuff into the queue and just doing it?
And then the second one was also just on some of the waste and reducing waste. I don't think that business often sees that at all. So a lot of the stuff we work around doing some automation, improving our automation processes. But that's like, why are you doing this? Instead of seeing that it's time we waste every iteration if we don't have those things in place. Like, why do we spend time on that? It's stuff that we have to do. Even though it might mean some business priorities don't get done, if it improves the process for all future things, it's got to be done.
Yeah, they don't look at it long term. They're like, there's no business value in this, but they don't realise that going forward it will save you a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, that very much happens in the OST space. So there's all focus on benefit and nothing on maintenance of it. You know what happened? We're spending loads of time remediating the architecture.
Well, from my side, I think it's just enough architecture or underlying architecture, not over design, under design, I suppose. The problem is some of the infrastructure stuff takes a long time. To get that right balance from the agile requirements being weekly, we need to plan a bit up front, and we need that feedback from you guys to give us up front sort of requirement, because we can't deliver every 2 weeks. Unfortunately,
I think we've got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, so I think there we need a better cycle, especially in the spikes and stuff. If you need something up front, or you're going to need, let us know early on in the project. Yeah, just enough architecture is also important. Not over design.
I think everything's been said already, but I agree with waste and spike.
Now I'm going to second what John says. It's good just thinking about the individual time, but it's nice to see it broken down into some points so you can actually have them as well as to move on each context and see that.
I like the idea of not always looking up to like a team lead or like management. I like that idea of like individuals empowering themselves and making themselves part of the team. Very much so.
I thought it was a good, useful presentation. I just have a question I'd like to ask. What has been your experience in convincing business to accept the considering
business very much behind it.
Considering that, like with waterfall, nobody get involved in the beginning of the requirements gathering and then forget about it for months or even years and come back into the picture when the product is delivered. But with Lean now, constantly have to work with the thing. And most of the time it's like an unfinished product. So how do you minimize frustration or?
I think the sell is actually quite an easy one. It's very difficult to argue with. We used to deliver like once every 2 months. We're now actually going to deliver every 2 weeks. We're also going to show you, constantly going to give you feedback, or get feedback from you, along the line, improve communication, what would you want to have. I think the business very much get that. Certainly in the STP space, that will be part of the process for a long period of time. And then I recently went through the whole principles of incremental delivery with the corporate banking team. They're also, you can't argue with the principles. You're going to say, okay, we're going to work towards more better communication, we're going to feedback to you more, and we're going to develop and drop it to production frequently. They can't exactly say no to that.
Currently it's crap, so selling anything is easier.
But Clive, it would be nice to, on one of your next talks or whatever, to show like previous the production deployment things and all that, and see how the agile methodology and this lean thinking and all the rest is streamlining, all our deployments from all the different streams. You know what I'm saying? Graphically showing how this whole process is making us operate better.
Yeah.
And then propagate that through to business as well to show, look guys, you see?
Yeah. Okay.
What I'd like to add is this is not for me. It's not just a repackaging of what we've been doing under a different name. It's actually a sea change, and it's something that's been changing in the technology industry in a very big way. A lot of other companies have done this very successfully and even more radically than we are. So we're doing it in a very safe way and in a very incremental way. So we're taking the best of what other teams are actually doing, and we're trying to apply that. So I think that there's still room for improvement. We can still even be a little bit more radical, perhaps. But it's great that we're actually heading down this road.
I think for me the highlight was getting feedback from when the business requirement all that another thing I just like want to comment, I'm new here, just for a week, and I'm already impressed by how we operate this. I've been to 2 other banks, and obviously some departments there, and I've been there, on the one account, for 3 months, and I haven't delivered a single thing production